Hello everyone. October is National Cybersecurity Month, and today we're going to talk about what that means and why you need to be thinking about this every month. My name is Tom Crossley, founder of Fairoaks IT, and we specialize in helping small to medium-sized businesses like all of you here today drastically reduce your security risks. I think most of you are going to be shocked at what I'm going to share with you, but the good news is that you'll now know about these types of threats and be able to protect yourself and your company against the growing army of cyber criminals who are working day and night to hack your systems, to steal your data, corrupt your organization, and basically just to rob you blind. Today I'm going to share with you something that could literally save your business and your bank account. Now I know you're likely on this webinar today because you are concerned, and rightfully so, about protecting you and your company from the vast and growing number of cyber threats out there today, be it ransomware like the recent CryptoLocker Trojan, bank and credit card fraud, rogue employees, regulatory actions being taken against you, or simply being down for hours or days due to a virus or employee mistake. And ultimately, I know you're here to make sure you don't lose everything you've worked so hard to achieve in an instant, especially since it can be prevented. The good news is that all of this can be prevented or the risks significantly reduced with a few simple things put into place now, and that's what we're going to talk about. What we're going to cover today, several topics. We're going to talk about the #1 security threat to your business that your antivirus, your firewalls, or whatever other security protocols and devices you put in place can't protect you against. Some rather shocking information about bank fraud that most businesses don't know or think about that could wipe out your bank account. And why firewalls and antivirus software just aren't enough these days. And lastly, we're going to talk about some cloud applications and talk about BYOD, bring your own device, or the latest craze with mobile devices, especially in business. Ultimately, what we're going to cover is how to avoid being a sitting duck. I'd like to just point out here that like most businesses, mobile and cloud technologies are kind of creeping into the organization bit by bit. It's not, for most organizations, been a planned intervention, and because of that, there is a fair amount of risk involved. The reality is that most of you are already using cloud computing. You already have employees using mobile devices, and it's a trend that is not slowing down. The growth of this trend is pretty significant. And most of this is being implemented in ways that aren't strategic. And because of that, you're making expensive mistakes and you're exposing yourself to some unnecessary risks. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to show you how to get a free copy of our report on what every business owner must know to protect against online identity theft. It's a report, and we'll have a free offer for you at the end. No obligation, absolutely free, but it could be something that could save your company thousands or tens of thousands, or even just save your company. So who am I? I'm Tom Crossley. I consider myself to be an information technology expert, but I know I'm passionate about delivering technology that just works the way it's supposed to. Our main goal is to provide enterprise-level IT support to small and medium-sized businesses, where we can consolidate the support, the tools that the big boys use, and bring them to the smaller businesses. I've been president of Fairoaks for the last 24 years. Prior to that, I was 10 years in the corporate world. I'm also a member of the FBI InfraGard Information Technology Team, which is an association of IT professionals along with the FBI. On the side, I'm a private pilot, instrument rated. That's my my outside of work passion. So what is the biggest issue that most of us deal with on mitigating or assessing the threats for our business? And that's just complacency. I haven't had a problem yet. I had a problem, but it wasn't that bad. But to quote Andrew Grove of Intel, success breeds complacency, and complacency breeds failure. And there is a bit of truth in that only the paranoid survive, especially in today's world with cybercrime. So we're going to talk a little bit about cybercrime as a business. It's not just the kids in the basement anymore. Cybercrime is a multi-billion-dollar a year venture, and as such, it's attracted a lot of organizations that know that there's a significant profit to be made. But let's step back a little bit and talk a little bit about just crime in general and the evolution of crime. You know, in the old days, the crime business was pretty simple. You bought a gun or a knife, you hid out in a dark alley, and when someone walked by, you jump out and say, stick them up, and you take their money. The startup costs were low, the overhead was low, and if you didn't get caught, you were okay. But of course, like any business owners, the criminals started thinking, well, how can I grow my business? And the technology of the day answered that question. Trains came along, and instead of robbing one person at a time, you could rob 200 or 300 people at a time. Robbing trains was a lot more lucrative than robbing individuals, because the trains were working in remote areas where there weren't organized police forces. The people on board were wealthy enough to be able to afford a train ticket, and they were worth robbing. And to boot, they were all rounded up and sitting in one single convenient location. We've migrated from that to where now the crime, you don't even have to be in front of the person. 1981 was the first personal computer virus. It was written into a video game, and it was inserted into a Macintosh. Back then, the term for it was sneakerware, and it was dubbed that because you literally had to walk around and install it. It wasn't something that was propagated through the internet like it is today. Somewhere around the year 2000, the I Love You Melissa virus came out, and the virus was named after the programmer's favorite stripper from a club in Miami. There was the Y2K, the first virus. It was the first email-borne virus. The subject line was "I love you." It essentially clogged email systems all around the world, and as such, it kind of by accident became the world's first spam. September 18th, 2001 was the first significant release of a virus. It was called the Code Red, and it was released on the 18th of September, and by the 21st, 3 days later, it had infected 2 million computers worldwide. I'm sure most of you remember the Jpmorgan credit card hack. It wasn't just one person working. It was a ring of an organized ring of hackers that perpetrated that. There were tens of millions of personal credit cards, and there were 7 million. They estimate 7 million small to medium-sized businesses in one fell swoop. And all this was right after the Target and Home Depot attacks, where 40 million credit cards were stolen at Target and 56 million credit cards from Home Depot. So think about the advent from the one person sticking up somebody passing by in an alley to a criminal attacking a train and accessing 200 or 300 people to 56 million people in one attempt. So you're thinking, well, it's no problem. If my bank account gets hacked, it's got FDI insurance. I'm backed by the full faith and credit of the United States of America. Well, you'd be thinking wrong, because the FDIC does not cover theft, cyber or otherwise, and there have been thousands of businesses that have lost checking accounts, savings accounts, payroll accounts, and have just gone out of business. Just recently, the FBI, in fact, it was in July of 2015, the FBI broke a ring. It was called dark code. The FBI operation was called Shrouded Horizon, and basically it was a think tank for the cyber criminals, a place where worldwide these cyber criminals, these hackers, could share their knowledge of vulnerabilities, of system problems, of right down to certain IP addresses that were vulnerable. So the hackers are becoming more organized. It's not just again, it's not just the kids in the basement anymore. If you remember back to the first slide, the lions are gathering. They're getting organized. So cybercrime is thriving, and the reason that it is so lucrative. On the black market, for your credit card information, that can sell for just one credit card for anywhere from $2 to $90 is the going price, depending upon how much information they have. The information on your iTunes account is worth $8 on the black market. If they can physically get a hold of your credit card, that's worth $190 on the black market. These are all just averages. These cyber criminals can buy a card cloner for $200 or $300. And so having your information makes it very easy for them to not just perpetrate these crimes through computers or through the internet, but with a card cloner, they can physically create your card and go to gas stations, anything like that. So this stuff there are YouTube videos on how to do this stuff. So it's not something that takes a rocket scientist to figure out how to profit from this. So you're thinking, well, we're small. Nobody's going to bother to hack us, right? Well, that's not actually the case. The reality is that 1 in 5 businesses falls victim to cybercrime every year, and that number is growing. So you don't just hear about these attacks because they just don't make the national news. The news wants to focus on the big stories. Second, most small businesses don't even know they've been hacked, or they don't report it as they should because they're embarrassed or afraid of legal or reputational consequences. Think about your customers finding out that you've been hacked and possibly their information is at risk. Small businesses are the easy targets generally. Because they don't think they're a target, they haven't taken the effort or invested in putting the security systems or the protocols in place that can prevent these kind of things. And lastly, half of all the cyber attacks are aimed at small and medium-sized businesses. So it's not necessarily a matter of the size of the institution or the company. It's a matter of how easy it is to penetrate. The extent of this, 82,000 new threats are being released every day. If you think that just a simple firewall and antivirus is enough these days, it's like trying to put out a forest fire with a squirt gun. It's the volume is just, the sheer volume is just so overwhelming. It takes a coordinated multi-layer strategy to protect yourself. Social media is another huge area that is becoming more and more the vehicle that these viruses, these Trojans, and these thefts are using. On an average, more than 500,000 Facebook's accounts are hacked every day. And if you think about that, the fact that once they have that information, they know they know so much about you. So many people use the same password for everything they do online that once they have your Facebook username and password, chances are it'll work in other places. They'll know where you live. And think about this when your kids post photos on the social media sites, that 60% of the photos that get posted on social media sites have the GPS data embedded, which means that all somebody has to do is right-click on the photo and download it, and they know where that photo was taken. In other words, they'll have your address. Continue on social media. Just from a productivity standpoint, 64% of employees visit non-work related websites every day. If you look at the chart that's in front of you there, you'll see that 32% of employees waste more than 2 hours a day at work on social media sites. And again, the big sites there are Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Pornography sites, 70% of all online pornography access occurs between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And there's 25% of the workers who admit to watching porn at work. So just take your guess as to what the actual number is. There was a survey done by salary.com of why employees are spending so much time on social media, and it's there's a range of reasons. 34% of employees say they're not challenged enough at work. 34% of employees say they work long hours. 32% say there's no incentive to work harder. So there's a variety of reasons that employees are doing this, but the reality is that statistics are that, again, 32% of the employees are spending more than 2 hours a day on social media. And then the last concern with social media is bad publicity, bad PR. I don't know how many remember this one of a Burger King employee taking a picture of him standing on the lettuce and posting it on Facebook. I mean, he was fired, but the PR for Burger King was pretty intense. The bad PR. You've all heard these kind of stories. So another growing trend is ransomware, and ransomware is software that once it's on your computer will take over your computer, lock you out in some cases, and essentially will threaten you with destroying your files or encrypting your files unless you pay the ransom. Some of the ransomware will actually go ahead and encrypt the file first, and then tell you that you have to pay a certain amount to decrypt it. In the US alone, there's been tens of thousands of businesses, individuals, and even law enforcement agencies hit with this virus. Typically, it's an unbreakable encryption. They use such a strong encryption algorithm that it's not something that any sort of repair can be done on. So the best case is you lose all your files. The worst case is that you lose your files, but the bad guys have them, and you don't know what's going to happen with your files after that. And the last thing I'll point out is that there have been no documented cases that paying the ransom actually got the files back. The type of people you're dealing with, you can't expect to have any honor there. There was a particularly nasty ransomware that went around, started about 18 months ago, and it was actually started by a syndicated Eastern Europe criminal ring. They actually set up a quote-unquote legitimate software company and employed over 200 programmers to write this encryption software. And then they actually even started franchising. They were selling the software on discs to little mini criminals all over the world using some of the types of hacker sites that we talked about a little earlier. The one ring that perpetrated most of these netted 10 billion, that's billion with a B, $10 billion before it was shut down. So if you wonder what the incentive is or why these hackers are working so hard to get at you, it's because it's very lucrative. So another emerging threat is shadow IT, the cloud. So let's talk about what cloud is. It's essentially, the cloud is a marketing term meaning someone else's server. So when somebody says they have their information on the cloud, what they're really telling you is they have their information on somebody else's server. If somebody tells you they put your information on the cloud, what they're actually telling you is they put your information on somebody else's server. Some examples of that are Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, iCloud, Cubby, Microsoft SkyDrive, SugarSync. There's a bunch of services like this, but they all work by sending your files to the cloud. So you have to ask yourself if you know if anyone in your company is using any of these. It's hard enough controlling your own network, so how do you feel about your company data residing on somebody else's server? The next frontier, where we're headed with all this, is mobile, and the mobile malware is growing exponentially, and it's across all platforms. There was last year 600,000 iPhones attacked with a Java virus. Android is also very susceptible to it. So if you have mobile phones in your organization, how many of you use them to access your company email? How many do you have employees that are using the mobile devices to access email? Then you have to ask yourself how many of you or your employees even have a password on your phone. And do you have a kill switch? Do you have a way to wipe the phone if it's lost or stolen? Spam is the single biggest reason that that datas are breached these days. Spam is something all of us deal with on a daily basis. A recent study showed that 44% of US companies had their security breached as a result of spam. Most companies don't even know that that's happened to them. There's malicious links or files embedded in the email. There's phishing attacks, and there's just so many ways. And again, these are not typically, high school kids in the basement generating these things. These are well-funded, well-run, well-researched organizations doing this these days. And the social engineering that goes into a lot of this spam is pretty sophisticated. Real quick, some of the things that you can do to lower your risk of spam is set up multiple email addresses, have a private one that you share amongst your business colleagues and friends, and have a separate email address. Pick up one of the free email addresses that are available and use that for all your online shopping. You can rotate that too. Another suggestion is never respond to spam. As good as it feels to send a nasty note back to somebody when they send you spam, what you're doing there is you're just confirming to them that they have a live person, that they have a real email address that somebody is looking at, and that actually raises the value of your email address. And again, remember, these guys are driven by profit. And on the same light, think before you click unsubscribe. Unless it's a reputable company that you're dealing with, that a large online retailer, something like that, that's been sending you newsletters. Think before you click the unsubscribe, because that's just another way of letting the spammers know that they have a real live email address. Another suggestion is just keep your browser updated. You've all seen the messages that come up and say there's a new version of the browser available. Keep it updated, because these companies that provide the browsers do their best to keep them from being susceptible from some of these attacks. And the last thing is to use your anti-spam filters. Most professional email services will offer some sort of spam filtering. So in general, how do you protect yourself? I've got 7 quick recommendations for you. The first one, we talked about what was the single biggest threat to networks that you can't protect yourself from with firewalls or antivirus software or anti-spam software, and that's your employees. The single biggest reason that companies will get infected is because something is brought into the network by an employee, and that could be a USB thumb drive brought from home. It could be an employee clicking on a website. Even if you have content filtering on your website available, what websites are available from within your company, they're not always foolproof. It could be a company receiving, an employee receiving a joke from a buddy, and it's got a link in it, or they click on it to see a picture, or there's just so many ways that that you can open your network up without unintentionally. And the biggest single thing that we can recommend is training employees on the best security practices. I talked about employees bringing in USBs. There's been some studies done. If an employee finds a USB stick in the parking lot on his way into work, there's a 50% chance they'll plug that into the company network to see what's on it. If the USB stick they find in the parking lot has the company logo on it, there's a 75% chance they'll plug that into the company network. There's a story that goes with that. I'm sure a lot of you heard about the attack on the Iranian nuclear facility. This happened several years ago. And the attack actually was to sabotage the development of the uranium that they needed to process for the nuclear facility. So what happened was the speculation is it was a joint effort between the U.S. and the Israeli government, and they actually got the virus into the facility by dropping a USB stick in the parking lot. It was kind of an ingenious virus in that what it did was the centrifuges that enriched the uranium they basically just modified the RPMs on the centrifuge to where it looked like things were working, but it wasn't actually producing the results it was supposed to be. But regardless, the point is that somebody picked up a USB stick and plugged it into their network. Along those lines, you should create an acceptable use policy, an AUP. And that's something that we could help you with, but basically defining for your employees what they're allowed to do with the computers and on the internet, and you need to enforce the AUP. Require strong passwords and require that there be passwords on the mobile devices also. In certain states, including Massachusetts, if you've got what the state identifies as personally identifiable information, you actually have a legal obligation from the state of Massachusetts to have certain criteria for your passwords and to change them at certain intervals. Obviously, keep your network up to date. That means keeping the patching done on all your computers, keeping all the operating systems up to date, not running outdated operating systems, maintaining next generation firewalls on your network, maintaining multiple layers of security on your network, antivirus, anti-spam, essentially all the technical details that you need to do on your network. Nothing is foolproof, so in every case, it's imperative you have an excellent backup. Viruses and hacks and attacks aren't the only reason you need to have excellent backup, but they certainly are a big part of the reason that you should have a backup strategy in place, have on-site, off-site. We've talked about backup before and the 5 criteria for backup, but it's essential when you think about the virus and the hacking threats that are out there. Block. Don't allow employees to download unauthorized software or files. It's good to have a company site that you can actually upload and have your any files being sent to you uploaded to. A company site that would be vetted, that would have a security scan done on the file before your employee gets to where they're downloading it. And lastly, don't scrimp on a good firewall. Firewall technology has changed so much and has improved so much, and there's next generation firewalls. The firewall should have not only the physical protection of the firewall, but the next generation firewalls today also run their own subscriptions on them, which is your first layer of antivirus and anti-spam protection. So the bottom line is you have to get serious about protecting your company against cybercrime, because it's out there, it's getting worse, it's getting more sophisticated, and it's getting the consequences are getting more serious. But what does that mean when I say to get serious about protecting your company? So there's essentially 3 steps to protect your organization. The first step, as with anything, is to do a threat assessment. Like any business plan, the first thing you need to do is assess where you are. And so the first step to protecting your organization is see where you stand right now. Where are the holes that you have? Are you doing BYOD, bring your own device? What sort of cloud applications are you running? How is your backup working? So the threat assessment is a multiple point assessment. Call it an audit that looks at everything from your policies and procedures to the hardware and softwares in place and being used. Once you've got the threat assessment, the second step is to come up with an action plan. Based upon whatever you found out in the threat assessment, where are you not protecting yourself to the fullest extent, and like anything, just the assessment of what's our risk if we don't do this, and how do we prevent things from happening. And then once you've got the initial action plan completed, it's an ongoing maintenance thing. This is not something that is stagnant. This is a landscape that's changing all the time. And if you take the approach that you're just going to get it fixed once and then forget about it, the attackers, the hackers out there aren't sitting still. They're constantly trying to one-up you. So the threat assessment, what we do is we recommend several steps, several things that need to be evaluated with the threat assessment. Everything from the firewall, the antivirus, spam, your acceptable use policy, your BYOD, your bring your own device policy, backup and disaster recovery, and also employee training. One of the big steps is employee training. We've run threat assessments for our clients and for prospects for quite a while, and I'll bring up, we were called in for a threat assessment about 1.5 years ago, and what we found was because they didn't have a second generation firewall, next generation firewall, and because of the architecture of the network, we, over a 7-day period, we were able to find that they had almost 20,000 attempts to hack into their server. And we don't know how long it had been going on, but these are the kinds of things we find. When we watch our firewalls, I would say on a medium-sized business of, say, 20 computers that's been in business for a while and has a domain name, we probably, especially if they've had an Exchange server on site, we probably see an average of about 5,000 attempts to hack through the firewall on a normal medium-sized business. 5,000 attempts a week is kind of the norm of what we see. So they're out there, they're trying to get in, and it's up to us to constantly be vigilant. Again, remember, they just have to get lucky once. They just have to outsmart one person. We have to outsmart everybody every day. So we offer a threat assessment, and for this webinar, we're offering for a limited number of participants to do this free. And the reason that I'm doing that is that we are committed to improving security wherever we can. Our goal is to help our small businesses. We're a small business and we know what it's like. So we'll come to your office and we'll conduct a threat assessment. And in that threat assessment, we'll evaluate the things that we talked about before: the firewall, antivirus, spam protection, AUP, backup and disaster recovery, your employee trainings process. And in addition to that, everybody who signs up for that will offer a free report on what every business owner must know to protect themselves. And it's free for anybody who signs up for the security audit. So 3 things you need to know about this assessment. Again, it's something that we'll offer to a limited number. I can only offer it to 4 people. We're doing this in September in preparation for October Cybersecurity Month. So we have room to fit 4 of these assessments in the month of September. There's no obligation. We'll do the assessment. We'll leave you a report. You'll have all the information you need to know where your holes are and what to do about them. And the last thing to know is that this is by application only. So before we do the threat assessment, we'll have to talk a little bit to make sure that it's something we can help you with before we go ahead and book the consultation. So what to do is, if you're interested in the threat assessment, go to the link below and fill it in before the end of business today. And as I said, we'll take the first 4 on a first-come, first-served basis. And if you go to our website, fairoaksit.com/online theft, there's a link there that you can sign up for the audit, the security threat assessment. And we'll follow up with you. We'll set up a consultation, and we'll come out and do the assessment. So I hope I've provided some good information. Looks like we're a little bit ahead of schedule here, so that's good. I hope I've provided some good information for you and given you some things to think about, some things to go take action on, and anything that we can do to help with. Certainly feel free to send me an email. My email is tom@fairoaksit.com, or give us a call at 774-222-5500, and any one of us here will be more than happy to help you. So again, thank you for joining us today, and appreciate your time, and please feel free to call us if you think we can help you with anything. Thank you very much.